Roman Abramovich is one of the few people who survived the big changes for rich businessmen. When Vladimir Putin took power, when Putin became leader, he wanted to control the country more. He made the rich businessmen who got rich after the Soviet Union ended follow his rules. Many rich people in Russia lost everything when they went against the government, but Abramovich decided to do something different. He adapted and agreed. Unlike other rich people, Abramovich didn't get involved in politics. He focused on staying powerful by being loyal and smart. This cleverness helped Abramovich keep his money and become one of the most successful billionaires in Russia. He showed how to adapt in a changing political situation. Think about the time when Boris Yeltsin was the leader before Putin. The rich businessmen were almost in charge of Russia's economy and politics. But when Putin became leader, things changed quickly. He made it clear that the government should control the big businesses. No one is above the law, and no one can challenge the government. The biggest example of this was when they arrested Mikhail Khodorkovsky. He was a billionaire who had $15 billion. He was the richest person in Russia. This was a clear warning to other rich people. In that situation, Abramovich chose a smart way to act. Instead of fighting, he became a friend of the government. For example, he'd bought a company for a low price when things were changing to private ownership. Then, he sold most of it to the government's company, Gazprom, for $13 billion. This deal not only made Abramovich a lot of money, but also helped the government control the oil and gas industry, which is very important for Russia's economy. Even more important, Abramovich not only accepted the new rules, but also helped with Putin's plans for the country. He helped with political and social programs. When he became governor of Chukotka in 2000, he spent billions of dollars to build roads, schools, and hospitals, while other rich people tried to stay away from the government or fight it. Abramovich gained Putin's trust. Also, Abramovich's lifestyle also made him different. It set him apart. He was famous for being rich, owning yachts, airplanes, and the Chelsea Football Club. But most importantly, he didn't use these things to go against the government or gain his own political power. This kept him from being suspected. In general, while rich people like Khodorkovsky became symbols of fighting the government, Abramovich showed how to adapt and be smart. In that situation, he kept his huge wealth and also stayed in a special position with the government. This smart choice made him an exception in Putin's crackdown about his marriages. Abramovich has been married 3 times and has 7 children. His first wife, Olga Yulivna, was with him from 1987 to 1990. His second marriage to Irina Malandina lasted 16 years, from 1991 to 2007. This was the most important one. When he got married, Abramovich didn't have a lot of money, but when he got divorced, he had $18.7 billion. He had 5 children from this marriage, including 4 daughters and 1 son. After that, he married Dasha, who started the Garage Museum in Moscow, but they also broke up after being together for a long time. Roman Abramovich is also known for his expensive lifestyle and huge wealth. His wealth reached its highest point at $23.5 billion. In 2008, according to Forbes, he has about $11.60 to $14.1 billion, which is enough to live a very rich and expensive lifestyle. Besides his personal life, people are always interested in Abramovich's wealth. It's a big topic. He owns many properties around the world. One of them is a mansion in Kensington Palace Gardens in London, which costs $118.3 million. It's in a famous area for billionaires. In the Caribbean, he spent $90 million to buy a 28-acre mansion on the island of St. Bart's. In the US, Abramovich bought 4 houses next to each other on East 75th Street on the Upper East Side of New York. He plans to turn them into one big mansion. He also owns another house nearby, not just in England and the US. He also has property on the French Riviera. In France, besides property, Abramovich loves airplanes. He has a collection of expensive private jets. The Boeing 767-33A, nicknamed the Bandit, is one of the most special things he owns. He bought it in 2004. This jet cost about 66 million British pounds. It was turned into a flying palace with fancy decorations. It has expensive wood, metal, and gold. It can hold more than 30 people in the living room. It also has things like a kitchen, a bar, and 2 bedrooms. It even has a system to protect against missiles, like the US President's Air Force One. The system cost £1.5 million to install. He doesn't just have one jet. Abramovich also has 2 other private jets, a Boeing 767-300, which costs £55 million, and a Boeing 737-700, which costs £60 million. Even though they aren't as high-tech as the Bandit, they show how luxurious his lifestyle is. They are still very fancy. Roman Abramovich, with his huge wealth and expensive taste, is a symbol of wealth and power, not just in Russia, but around the world. If you only look at Roman Abramovich from the outside, you'll see a famous billionaire with some of the most expensive things in the world. But to really understand him, you need to know the story of how he went from a difficult childhood to becoming one of the most powerful people in Russia after the Soviet Union ended. Born in 1966 in Saratov, a region in southern Russia, his life started with tragedy when he lost both his parents at a very young age. When he was 4 years old, he was raised by relatives in the Komi Republic, a cold and poor region in northern Russia. It wasn't an easy place to dream big, but maybe that's what made Abramovich strong and determined. When he was young, he didn't have special advantages or a rich family. His first job was as a mechanic, a simple job that required more strength than brains. Things started to change when the Soviet Union started economic changes in the late 1980s. During this time, the government allowed small businesses to operate freely. Abramovich saw an opportunity. With very little money, he opened a toy factory and sold plastic ducks from his small apartment in Moscow. Those days showed how smart he was in business, knowing how to use every opportunity to make money, even small ones. After the Soviet Union broke up in the early 1990s, Abramovich continued to expand his business. He got into the oil transportation business and industrial products, which were very promising areas, but also risky. By 1995, he had a pretty stable career because he knew how to seize opportunities in the chaotic Russian economy, which was changing so much. His smartness and ability to see the big picture led him to the biggest turning point in his career. In 1995, Abramovich joined with Boris Berezovsky, another famous, rich businessman, to buy one of the biggest oil and gas companies in Russia. At the time, for only $200 million. This is considered one of the best deals ever, because the real value of Sibneft later increased a lot. Because of this deal, Abramovich went from being a regular businessman to officially joining the top group of rich people, with a huge amount of money that kept growing. He didn't stop there. Abramovich also made a name for himself internationally as the owner of the Chelsea Football Club. He spent almost $2 billion to turn Chelsea from a normal team into one of the best clubs in the world, winning many important awards. But what's interesting is that Abramovich never just stayed as a football club owner. He used Chelsea as a way to improve relationships with other countries, building relationships with politicians and top business people in England and Europe. Abramovich also got attention when he helped with peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. Even though Western countries put sanctions on him, Abramovich still had a special role in the peace process, trusted by both Moscow and Kyiv. This shows that Abramovich is not just a businessman. He always knows how to seize opportunities and turn challenges into advantages. Roman Abramovich is an example of someone who knows how to use business opportunities and understands politics to protect his position. Even though he's seen as a rich businessman, he always finds a way to make himself different in the eyes of the public and the government. That's why, when people talk about Abramovich, no one can describe him with just one word.